Okay, what's going on, guys? Caleb here, and today we're with one of my top students, Chase. Chase, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Sweet. So yeah, today for those of you guys, we're going to do a brief interview with Chase. We're going to talk not only about his experience in sales, but also his experience with both the identity closing methodology as a whole and some of the more advanced stuff we're doing in leverage sales trainer, sort of a private under the radar things kind of being built in the background. But yeah, I would say me, Chase and I have had a really interesting relationship. I'd say he's been one of my first and earlier students, and yeah, we've done a lot of stuff when it comes to different offers and accounts. But he's also seen some incredible results just in more recent times with some of the different things that we're working on. But yeah, with that, Chase, I'd love if you could take a moment just to give people just a brief on your background, sort of who you are, where you're based, and what you saw.
Yeah. I'm based out of Australia. I'm 23, and at the moment I'm selling two offers. The first is like a biz op coaching offer, and then also selling like high ticket forestry equipment as well. That's more through the LST. So that's ranging from more so like 40 to 60K. As opposed to like the affiliate marketing biz ops, more like the 2.5K side of things. So I'm at each end of the spectrum at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, from sophisticated to unsophisticated. Well, depending
Yeah,
on, the redneck tree cutting market's definitely its own thing, to say the
that's the
least.
one. Yeah.
But yeah, but take us back to the beginning. How did you find your start in sales, and what was sort of your, what's your route? How did you find your way into everything?
Yeah. Shit, that's a good question. So pretty much when I first started or before sales was I was just trying to figure out what to do. I knew I wanted to get into like business, entrepreneurship, and I was looking at everything under the sun. Like fuck. I looked at just every agency. I was like, oh, I'm gonna start an email marketing agency. Basically looked at everything under the sun. Thought I was gonna do like SaaS marketing. Bought just a bunch of courses. Spent way too much money and didn't go through with it. But then I just found a program talking about high ticket closing, and I was like, "Fuck, this is it." Literally watched the VSL. The next day, fucking jumped on a call and spent the I don't know, I think it was like eight K or 9K to get into the coaching program,
Mm.
and then we were off to the races. So that's sort of my
Yeah,
my journey before getting into sales.
yeah, and it's funny that you say that because for those of you guys who may or may not know, my background was similar. I tried drop shipping. I tried even running my own agency. I didn't even land my first. I didn't get my first client. It was a software client. But I just sucked at everything business, especially sales. And I just knew that as painful as fulfillment was, I couldn't get another one of these if I needed to.
Yeah,
So if the first client turned out from not getting results, I definitely couldn't get another one. And yeah, just like that as well, I spent all my money not on a program for sales specifically, but that's its own story. I can cover in my own video.
mm,
But yeah, so from there, got in through fortunately a biz op program about high ticket sales, and
yeah,
where did things go from there?
yeah. So it started off like I just because I went all into sales. Like I just I burned the boats and I was like, okay, I'm a sales dude now. So I pretty much just worked through all their material. Not that it helped at all, but I was just doing mock calls. They somewhat helped, and then I just started outreaching. And that's when I landed my first offer after like and I think like a week and a half of doing outreach, just sending like these cringe video DMs trying to get a role. But nonetheless it worked. And then I got my first setting role and that was on an e-commerce excuse me, an e-commerce offer. High ticket again. And yeah, that's actually where I met you as well, funnily enough.
Mm,
So
mm,
yeah, and that's I basically started doing the setting. It sucked because I was super bad. But then I think Caleb came in like halfway through as like sort of sales manager. Yeah, I actually started seeing some results. Uh, and just like having a process to it as opposed to just I don't know being a
yeah,
goomba about it.
that was a crazy time. And I remember very distinctly too the sales agency I was working for when we did meet. And yeah, and I will say one thing too that is as much as that was crazy, there was one thing that definitely stood out immediately. It was glaringly obvious from when we first met, but I think it was just your actual commitment and your hunger to the craft for all of this.
Yeah,
It was clear that you were there, and you even said it time and time again. Look, I'm just here to learn the skills. Once I figure out the whole skill thing, then everything else will take care of itself. And lo and behold, here we are, however many months later, completely
yeah,
different, situation, completely different person, skill set, and all that stuff. Um, but yeah, but so, as much detail as you want to give, but what was your time like as a setter? And I think one thing we joked about too is actually how much you made during that time too, relative to how much work.
Yeah. 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 So my time as a setter, like statistically, it fucking sucked. But like skills wise, kind of like you said, it's like I just cared about the skills. I was like, I just need to get better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was working like 6 days a week, doing I don't know, probably like 6 to 8 hours a day, and the after like 3 months total of setting before I went into closing, I earned literally like $1,000. It was like VAs were lapping me 100%. Like I may as well have just been fucking in the Philippines, like just typing away. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah. So the experience overall was like I went from like knowing nothing to knowing something, but still getting paid nothing. Yeah, I think it's a
Yeah.
pretty standard journey, to be honest.
I was gonna say, I even for myself, it was periods of time where friends and family might even look at you and they're like, why do you do this? Like you could literally go
Yeah,
work the most boring of jobs and be making more
yeah,
than this, right?
yeah.
So, but yeah, just that sheer commitment. And I think that was the one thing too that I mean when I saw it, that's how I knew you were committed. Was it was never
Mm.
as little as you might have been making. Unfortunately, I was still manager on some of those projects too. Sometimes there's things about the offer you can't control, about the lead volume, all that stuff. But yeah, I remember seeing, the commission checks and whatnot, and I was like, huh, is there anything we can do? But yeah, not every business owner is as or as optimistic in their thinking, especially that whole agency or whatnot was that was its own story. But
And
then
and
yeah,
and
so mhm.
yeah, I will say as well. I was like, I don't know. I'm glad it happened because now I've got like a philosophy of like whenever new sales reps come in, I just feel like I don't know. I feel like they got to go through like a shit munching phase, like where I
Oh,
don't know, you're just kind of in the dirt because it just builds character. It makes you appreciate when you do have leads, and money.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, too many people, I wouldn't say too many people, very few people that come into sales crush it right off the bat. And those that do just develop kind of an arrogance or an egotism to them, and regardless of their skill level. And it's like, it's the same thing I see with a lot of sales coaches for beginners. And beginners, it's the blind leading the blind, where the sales coach isn't that good, but the beginners don't definitely know any better. So,
yeah.
yeah, no, 100%. And then how did you find your way into closing? What was the transition out of that?
Yeah, so yeah, that it was an interesting transition because I knew like there was a promotion available inside the account. Like there was the opportunity to actually like genuinely go from said to closer. Which a lot of the times is pretty rare. Most companies just hire externally. So that's another reason as well. I was just like, fuck it, I don't care if I don't get paid now because I'll get paid soon. So it was a bit of delayed gratification, but yeah, then I basically got the upgrade to closer in that account. Um yeah, that was I don't know, that was nerve wracking, but I don't know, yeah, it was a weird period because it was like I'm gone from setter into closing, and it's just like I don't know, it's kind of like a big shift. It's like
Mm,
you pedestalize like becoming a closer, and then when it's happened, you're like fuck, so it's here, and it's kind of like reverting back. It's like okay, we're back to no or nothing again. So yeah, that's pretty much
yeah.
what the progression looks like.
And you talk about that, and there's definitely a nostalgia that comes to that I remember too when I was a setter, thinking I'm nothing more than a setter, and there's no way I can do the whole closing thing. Closing, that is just like something the gods do. That's not something I do. It's this mystical
Yeah.
art of getting money out of people on one call, and I don't know, $4,000, $5,000 changing hands. But now looking back now, right, you do 200K deals and stuff like that, where it's just like, it doesn't feel as novel as it used to. Um,
Yeah.
but then let's talk about your experience with closing. And I think just your what was your expectations coming into closing, and then how did it go? And then I would say to that too, how did sort of the concept of identity as a methodology kind of come into that? Because I was blessed to be able to be part of some of that at a higher level because we were in some of the same companies. But what was that transition? How what were you expecting? How did it actually go? And then what was sort of that
Yeah.
breakthrough point for you when it came to your ability to sell?
Yeah. I think as far as expectations going into it, I think it was just a lot of nerves. Like because it is just like a big step up from sort of just smiling darling on the front lines. Like there was just less responsibility. But when you're actually sort of the one collecting the cash and businesses run off you, it's like you want to be profitable for the company. There's just I don't know, there's a lot more pressure in it, especially when you're new as well, because you're like, oh fuck, I don't really know what's going on. Um, So I think, yeah, it was just a lot of nerves and a lot of uncertainty. Um, I especially think at the time when I made that transition and got into, yeah, I got upgraded and then I went into a new account, where it's a very much like hyper performance environment.
Oof.
And
Definition of
like,
high performance. I do remember that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I remember being so scared for so long that I was gonna get dropped. And because it was just like, I have to close, but it's like I don't really know how to close yet. So I just remember being so scared for so long that I was gonna get dropped, and then it's like, who wants a closer that's had like 2 months experience? So I was so
Mhm.
scared I was gonna go back to setting, have to build up it in that new company. But yeah, nonetheless, sort of just figured it out with like just your guidance, the sales manager's guidance. But what really like I think the concept that helped me the most was just the identity part of it. Like we've had conversations about it, and it's like that aha moment where you're like, oh fuck, that's what we're doing. Like just even at a high level, we're not even selling the product with all the service. We're just selling them a new identity too, who they want to become. And you just emulate that throughout the sales call. And I don't know, that was like a huge point for me where I was like, oh bro, fuck, that makes so much more sense. That's what
Yeah.
we're actually doing. And just linking that together. Also,
Do you,
it also helps as well when I fucking actually figured it out closing. I think even just my first 2 weeks on the actual new account, I earned like more, like almost double what I did in the first 3 months. And now I've gotten to a point where one of my highs was like what 7 times that, about 7.5. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's funny to watch that whole progression as well.
Yeah, I remember very clearly, distinctly too. I think one thing with identity is it's like, I think it's really easy to, well, I don't think it's really easy, but it's really common to learn how to sell, a product or a specific product or service. You spend enough time in the right environment selling it or talking about it to people and pitching it to people, and you figure out how to get people to buy it. Or you just develop enough of a pipeline that people come around over time to be able to buy things. Um, but then it's another thing to actually know how to be persuasive on a call, be influential on a call, be able to actually incept and put ideas into people's minds, and more importantly, beliefs when it comes to the whole identity side of things that are actual anchor points that come later when you get objections or concerns, however you might label it, to be able to have a one size kind of fits all approach to closing all roads to just one, which is making a decision. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and with that, I mean, how do you feel about the tail end of the calls and your ability to commit people now, prior compared to prior before? I think you had such of a good grasp on the understandings as you do.
Yeah, it's just it's kind of like an easier process because I think before like I fully got it, it felt I don't know, maybe it was just a belief of mine, but I felt internally like I was trying to push them to somewhere they might not have like wanted to go per se. But it's a lot easier to sell someone into the person they want to be as opposed to like selling the product. So now it's more so I'm actually selling them the person they want to become. Like, they want to be this person with this freedom, earning this much with this lifestyle, and be labeled as like this sort of excuse me, like entrepreneur or person for their family. So it makes it a lot easier to hold them accountable because it's like this is who they want to be.
Mhm.
So yeah, and just like at a principal level, it makes things just easier because you kind of all funnel it into that one point. It is like it doesn't really matter what objection they say; it's about who they want to become. That's like the conversation.
Yeah, and that's really bang on at its core. Really, what I try to emphasize in that is, and that's why I tell people too, when people wonder, it's like, oh, how do you get like slappy happy in a call? How do you have more aggression? How are you able to be more confrontational, assertive, or direct with people? And I think it's something that, one, there's people that don't like that. I'm not saying you can do identity in a very suave way where there's no confrontation. I definitely say I've gotten pretty good at that. But then there's also times too where you do need to be able to have that edge with people and be able to call them out on things. But if it's calling them out as like, why aren't you buying the product? Don't you want to be this? Like, don't you want that? Don't you want these things? There's kind of that barrier in front of them, which is like, well, yeah, but, and that's the key thing you get stuck with is there's always a but that they can keep bringing things back to. But with kind of the shell or the frame of identity that you can put people in, or I think you've actually pioneered calling it the E-frame, and that's what I call it now in the program, the
Yeah.
E-frame. Um, there's that beautiful, it's hard to grasp. And even saying it now, for those of you guys who might not understand, the concept of identity is that people don't buy because they're not the person who is capable of buying, or they're not your customer. And so your job is to get them to no longer think about considering being a customer, to give them the mind of a customer before they purchase. So that way that decision becomes easier. But with this, when you've got that anchor point of who do you want to be, you can call them out on that, you can challenge them on that, and you can pick apart their language specifically of like, okay, well, is that what someone who is committed would say? Is that what someone who's getting these results would say? No. And that's just like, a box that you can't leave until you can take that to in a value or out of value. But yeah, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that. And then we can talk about sort of the ventures we're at now and sort of the things that are, in the works as far as the, LST.
Yeah, no, I think you smashed it. Like it is literally like it's a high level of awareness where you just realize like there's no. I remember you told me it's like if you get it to a point like where they're so enthralled in this identity and who they want to become, it doesn't actually matter what you pitch at the end. You could chuck in like I sell affiliate marketing, I could chuck in e-commerce, and they're still gonna buy it because it's not the product they're buying, it's who they want to become, and that's really stuck with me. So that's a G point.
Yeah. Yeah. And before we move on, is this something that you've seen anywhere as far as other places, or how do you feel about sort of the kind of, how do you feel like this is different from a lot of the standard stuff you see in the market when it comes to sales training?
Oh, bro, we could talk about this for half an hour. I don't like, I can only speak from like my experience and what I've seen with other reps, but the like sales coaching industry is just so fucking like cookie cutter. Like it's so word track based. It's so like unprincipally speaking based, and it's all just like it's just so cookie cutter. That's how I'd put it. It's not like the nuanced points of like persuasion. At the very least, it might just be, I know some programs out there, they have the process, but it's honestly more of like the emulation of the mentor, and that's what gets the deals over the line, not their actual understanding of what they're doing. It's like they might just start being more, more sort of hard ass. Like they'll change that, and that's what might get them results, but they never have that true like understanding of what they're saying, the reason they're saying it. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's just like with you, like I've got a full spectrum understanding of like the whole sales process, the actual and the principal level of like the identity. Yeah, it's just you just don't have that up there. Like there's like I've done one other sales training, and I've got friends who have done all the other ones out there, and every time I hear it, I'm like, yep, it's kind of what I expected. Like, it's not that good. Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Yeah. No, love it. Love it. And I agree with you on that too. I think too much of sales is there's a part of learning that is emulation. And I think people don't know that there's more to the learning process beyond just sounding like somebody else sounds or doing as somebody else does. There's not that clean cut turning you into someone who is a persuasive or an influential individual and can think from a first principles basis to troubleshoot what they're running into in real time, right? And more importantly, giving you the ability to own your own or have your own voice or have your own words. Like, what is it about those other reps that we admire? Well, it's what their understanding of things, and there's a lot of things that they're unconsciously competent of that they can't quite articulate. But I'd be, kind of say in this moment that I think you've begun to kind of cross that chasm where you sell now as Chase. You don't sell as me. You don't sell as your sales manager. You don't sell as somebody else. I don't know if you have anything to add to that. It looked like you might have.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. Because it used to be like, I know I'm trying to close like this person, but I think there comes a point where you've got to realize like all of the answers are inside of you, and you just have to trust your own sort of sales intuition, or it's just like it's beyond sales. It's like your own social intuition. Um, and yeah, you're definitely right. Like there's less emulation now, and that's not to say you don't take points from other people or like different things they do, but it's very much like my own understanding of sales, or just more so like principle level human behavior, I suppose. Now, so
Yeah, no, love that. And for context, what were your earnings at when you started to where you were at sort of the inflection point in your sales career? Because there is more to this story of Chase and sort of what you're working on now. But yeah, earnings from then
yeah,
to milestone one, would you say?
yeah. So it was like kind of like I mentioned, it was like the first sort of setting 3 months was like legit $1,000. Like that's like even that might be max.
Yeah.
And then once I got into closing, like even that first week, it was Like I basically made that in that week. And then like it got to the point where I'm earning 7x that, so it's like 7.5K.
Mhm.
So it's definitely like it's literally a big jump, especially from when I first started to where I'm at now. And that's only with the side of like the affiliate marketing I'm selling, which is
Yeah,
even a bit lower ticket if anything.
right. And by affiliate
So
marketing, we're not talking MLM. We're talking coaching program teaches specific
yeah,
mechanism. A lot of
yeah,
layman's
like
people
Prism,
might
yeah.
think affiliate marketing like, oh, you know, buy my supplements. And what was your time frame too? I would say on that.
Um, it's a good question. Well, I've been closing for I think 8 months now. It's probably like five, 5 months.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I think about 5 months. And I don't know. It's funny though because it's like I earned that amount like in the 5 months, but my level of skill and understanding is still kept like improving. And it's crazy because I have so many aha moments every time, even we jump on a call, where I'm like, fuck, like that's crazy. I didn't even know that. So it's crazy to think it's only been like 8 months closing.
No, I'm
Pretty hard.
envious too.
But
I think about
it's
my
been less than
sales.
a year for sure.
I'm certainly envious when I think about my experience in sales and just the amount of pain that came with that for how long. But no, no. But yeah, and so take us to where you were at. So then we have Leverage Sales Trainer, which is another offering that I have, which depending on when you're watching this, it may or may not be called Leverage Sales Trainer. We're still playing around with what we want to call it. But point being, teaching you the skills to be able to graduate beyond sales and beyond closing. There comes a point where you get good at closing and you kind of walk as far down the road as you can. And what's left? Just taking more calls, selling more expensive things. So where were you at prior to Leveraged Sales Trainer? And what was kind of the tipping
Uh,
point?
Yeah, I think well, even just getting into sales, like I know there's like a lot of mercenary sales dudes out there who, it's like career long, like this is their career now. Mine was like I always just wanted to get into business and like just I didn't know what that looked like. And that was that sort of spur when I was trying to figure out what to start. But I always knew like just being a sales rep it wasn't really the end destination. It was just something where I was like, fuck it. Like I need to learn how to sell. I need to make money. I need to be into like the business sort of entrepreneurial scene. And I think the tipping point just came when it was like, I don't know, I just felt this urge that like I just wanted to do something else. I wanted to do more. And I've always followed that sort of intuition. Some people would call it like sort of shiny object. And, I might have fallen into that before, but I just thought it was like a natural progression. And when
Mhm.
you sort of talked to me about it, I was like, bro, there's like, I'd hate myself if I said, like, if I didn't do this. It was like, and it's one of those things as well where it's like, I didn't feel like I was ready. And even I said to you, like, I'm so nervous. I can't even believe I just said, yes, I'm going to do it. But yeah, I was just like, because the expectations is like, I have no idea what to do. Like, I don't, like, I've never even seen this realm of what's past the actual sales school itself.
You're
So I
so
just remember
used,
I was, yeah,
yeah. Let's say it's so easy to get so hyper focused on just getting good at that one part of the conversation or that one part of the role. But when you realize that there's actually all this stuff that goes into it, sales, marketing, management, systems, funnels, tech,
yeah,
leadership, recruitment,
yeah,
management, right? And it almost makes sales seem so small, but that's why I
hmm
also think it's probably one of the best or most important things for a salesperson to become aware of and to embrace is because across all of those, the one thing that stays constant is you're dealing with human beings and
hmm
you have to know how to persuade and influence them to keep them on board with your vision and your ideas, regardless of your skill level, right? And I think that's where you had spent so much time mastering sales, and I think and you were blessed to I think have been under me for a lot of those months. So I don't think you didn't have any bad habits really that we had to unwrite. Um, but yeah, but anyhow, building upon your understanding of scale sales, what is that next platform for your career that's going to allow you to not only step up your earnings, but step up your experience so you are qualified to earn more. Same way as you had to get experience to be setter, to be able to become closer, get good experience as closer to become that next thing. And the dilemma always is when people want to leave sales, I don't have experience in anything outside of sales, or I don't have enough experience for things outside of sales. I even for myself struggled to sometimes interview for sales manager because I didn't have years of being a sales manager. But something like this, or at least what I'm trying to cultivate here, is sort of the ideal apprenticeship for you to be able to get the experience in a non-risk way where the return is guaranteed. And we can talk about that as well as far as just the amount of risk for what it was. But yeah, but what was the breaking point for you that got you to kind of get over that line and then stop into it? And then what were your expectations coming into everything?
Yeah, in all honesty, like it was one of those things where because there was just so much uncomfortability around it. And I was like, because I like like I can sell, but I know there's like millions of better sales reps out there. And I think there was like a bit of imposter syndrome, then just also the nerves of actually stepping into something new. But I knew because it's like I already bet on myself in setting. It's like the exact same thing. It's like I didn't know like sure I'm a closer now, but I have no fucking idea what's going on. And it's the same thing. It's like I just realized that this is my life now. Like this is how it's always going to be because even this next step isn't the last stepping stone. And this like feeling of uncomfortability is always going to be there. But if I actually want to reach my goals, like this is the only option because it's like you said, it's like how it's pretty hard to get into a sales management position if you haven't been in like management. That's like how are you going to get there, Jay? But this program it's just like, oh, bro, it's a no brainer. And as far as my expectations actually going into it, it was just again, it was those nerves, like just so out of the water. Like I can't believe I'm doing this. But yeah, it's been the best decision I've made so far, 100%.
And I would say building on that, how are things going now? And sort of because yeah, the experience of it is very interesting as far as offers go, as far as just how
Mm,
much time and attention and support, or even how you're positioned within this. But yeah, we had a client that had come our way who was a industrial tree cutting company, Fox Forestry. I don't know if I should say the name of Fox Forestry if you guys want to look them up. And if you go ahead, click on anything there, Chase will be one of the first people to call you, if not one of the other
that's
reps.
right.
Now you are doing some work for the company as far as sales goes, but yeah,
Yeah.
and how was it sort of your first just tell us the first 60 days into it, and how do you feel about sort of the current trajectory of where things are going?
Oh, bro, like the first, like starting off, it was the most scary thing in the world. Like, because I remember even because it's like you've been there every step of the way, which, oh, bro, if you weren't here, I'd be like done. Like, I would have been chewed up, swallowed, and spat out. Um, so yeah, it was just like it was so daunting, but it was good in a sense to know that like you were there and like I could sort of lean on you because it's like it is very much outside of just like sales. Like it's the same thing, but it is like slightly different. So there was that adjustment
And
period
did
of
you think it was hard to take on? Because I know you talk about there being a lot of anxiety, but I feel like you adopted it all very well.
yeah, it's like taking it on. It's just like when you feel a certain way, you just got to go forward anyway. So I was
Mhm.
like, I might have felt these certain ways in all of the like these meetings, setting everything up, like trying to figure out even how to like manage a CRM, just like even managing myself, like how to have this veil of professionalism, so I don't look like a retard or a goomba. Apologies. Um, but yeah, it was just putting one foot in front of the other. It's like I felt shit, but I don't know. I just think it was like a lot as well, like you, just like having you there was like it was like a fucking comfort or some shit.
Yeah.
Sound like you're my girlfriend or something, but no, it was good because it's like you're walking in someone else's shoes and you've actually have you there as well.
No,
Like it would have been tough.
and as much as I was there, I would say it's more of just a perception thing. It's just kind of a framing thing where I think all I did was help keep the frame on the situation and keep the grip on the situation. I
Yeah.
don't think you lacked any of the skills or the communication skills or understanding. I think it was just the certainty to keep everyone in line to follow in lockstep with you, right? And
Yeah.
so my kind of presence in that was just setting the tone, setting the agenda, keeping things from
Yeah.
getting too loose or too tight.
Yeah.
And we're now kind of at that inflection point truly where I would say it is the passing of the guards where
Mm.
now you get it. I would say it took a little while and there wasn't, but you absolutely smashed it. You absorbed everything. And as much as it wasn't like this, and it wasn't, for those of you guys who are curious, it's not just like a course program you go through. It's just
Yeah.
like, okay, you're learning by doing, you're just kind of throwing live, but no, you've earned everything that you've gotten there 110%. And I think too, just the respect that the client has and the responsibility you've taken on, it's something that's earned. And I think that was just the initial part was, I mean, you were new to this. They didn't quite know who you were. They were betting on my sort of judgment of saying like, okay, this is Chase, you're going to be working with him now. He's going to be me because I'm not, I'm going to be kind of in and out of this. And for the most part now, I just check Slack and attend a couple of meetings and say the opener and say the closer.
Yeah.
And you fill the whole meeting with its actual contents and you're on top of everything. And if you were to break down too, what were some of the maybe core skills that you felt like you learned during this time that are now like part of your tool belt?
Yeah, I think some of the like core skills are, first of all, I think it's just understanding like the sales system as a whole, from like the marketing level, even just down to the sales call, if anything. And just like mapping out the full process. Because it was like we came in and like built everything. It was literally 0 to 1 for literally everything. So
Hmm.
first of all, yeah, just that high level of understanding. I guess it is again outside the sales environment and how it's affected as a whole. Another one is just having that level of like professionalism and I don't know, just like speaking in a certain way, and just like perception management, if anything, because it's like you just want to come across in a certain way. Like you kind of like I mentioned, like I felt like at the start, if I spoke too much, it's like I'm gonna fuck something up, look like a goomba. But now it's to the point where it's like I actually understand how to communicate with, if anything, what is 7-figure CEOs. Um, so yeah, that was key. Is like that veil of professionalism, which I think you teach and do so well. Well, it's not a veil; it's like it's just intrinsically there. And what's another one? Shit, there's so many. It's like I couldn't even break it down. But those are the first two that come to mind.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
think it
and
too.
just quickly, apologies. Just
Mm-hmm.
the actual like management and like just the actual management of like salespeople as
Yeah, I was
well.
just
That's huge.
yeah.
That's huge.
You now have another rep under you who is like older than you and is just now
Yeah,
following what you say for the most part. And I think that's
yeah,
a big thing. I remember the first time I took a sales call with a counterpart who was like 40 or 50 sometimes, and you're telling these people how to do things properly, right? So to have someone underneath you where it's like, look, I'm not your boss, but if you don't listen to me, you'll be fired. So it's like
yeah,
that's pretty much how it goes. Um, but yeah, too, and I also think there is a lot of pressure too because this was a company that's doing $4 to $5 million a year in revenue that did not have um, a sales function, and you were coming in off of just having been a closer, fresh off the press. One of the higher performers for the year, highest performers for the account that you were in, and to now just being trusted with all of it. But everything's moving at a really great speed internally, and I would say, I mean, you just
mm-hmm.
smashed it. I'd say as much as it was a new experience and new skills, I don't think it had anything to do with the skills, but all just to do with your mindset. And I think it's clear that you've got that deep persistence inside of you or that ruthlessness to really want to learn more. Albeit, you might shoot yourself in the, or you might not believe that you're as professional as you are, or you've definitely got maybe some of those limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome. But I think everybody does. I remember the first time I did something like this, and I was like at any moment they're gonna realize I'm not actually this, and I'm gonna,
Yeah,
gonna be gone. So,
yeah,
but you get more comfortable with that, and that's sort of I think one of the biggest things that I try to iron into all of my messaging, even in identity closing, is just it's not just about being good at sales, it's about being good at persuasion and influencing and being someone who can stay and maintain that frame of influence over people and just keep that kind of non-aggressive but subtle, really really subtle kind of puppet master at the strings type control over all social environments and be the most calibrated person there and know how to read the room and speak to specific people or say the right things and get other people on board. And I think one thing that we've watched as well that maybe I help with is just the complete alchemy of tense situations into just these, okay, now they're doing what we want without there being this big, butting of heads where there's just, conflict and things dissolve. So, but that stuff just takes time. I think that stuff just truly takes time, more reps and more instances. And also, I think the more places you do it as well, the more you develop it. Because, like you said with sales, it's not about your product that you're selling, it's just about all the other things. It's the same thing in these environments where it's not about what you're working on. There's all these other kind of subtle things that are going on as far as social dynamics. But no, and you're first. Well, we're past 30 days into it now, but as far as earnings for anyone who's interested of sort of what you're projected to make on this or have made to.
yeah, yeah. So over like the projected is like what? It'll be 15K. And so far a month in, it's at 7.5.
Mm.
So yeah, yeah, pretty much doubling again, like getting another 7.5K, and then you know, even later down the line, it's like who knows? Like it could be significantly more. But as of right now,
Yeah,
that's sort of where we're at, and I'd
yeah.
expect it to go far higher, to be honest.
Oh, without a doubt. And you
Yeah,
talk about doing 7.5 as a closer to now 7.5 with
yeah,
this, and you're still. Oh, I don't know what your hours are, but full-time closing, or how does this fit in your schedule?
Yeah, it is a bit tough to fit in the schedule, but I'm still doing like a full-time calendar, like for actual closing. I had to bring it down a little bit at the start because I was like, I don't know, I was just breaking out the whole time and like had to work at things. But I've opened the calendar back up for like sort of 8 hours.
Mhm.
And the account we're on that accommodates for fuck what like 16 calls. So yeah, there's you can definitely manage it, which is good. It's like
Yeah.
definitely high leverage. Like that's why it's leverage sales trainer, I
And
guess.
that's what I was going to say too, relative to what you have to do for how much you make, for what you have to do to how much you have to make. Do you feel leveraged?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, give or take the first sort of 2 weeks were a little bit more intensive in terms of the workload, but now it's at a point where it's like it's still a big workload together, but it's like it's super manageable. Like you can genuinely like you can do this while doing something else full time. Um, so yeah, it's definitely leverage. We'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's it. Um, but yeah, no, that was an incredible story. And I just feel a deep sense of contentness just around your future and just the where things are headed with all of this, because it's
Yeah,
part of me also has maybe a silent envy as well. I always think for a lot of the website developers, just like, how, how?
yeah,
But you had your fair amount of shit bunching, as you like to call it. And I think it was
yeah,
just the right amount. Any more than that, you kind of begin to lose your spirit or think this is a scam or none of this is worth it.
yeah,
But fortunately, you've made it out of that into good accounts with good management. And now Leverage Sales Trainer has been sort of that inflection point. And forever, it will be something that is on your resume. So if you want to go other
yeah, one
places,
hundred
you've just
percent.
got so much more freedom and lateral ability to move. But also, you know how to do this. And at some
Yeah.
point, we'll talk about more specifically how you sell a client like this in for yourself. And then who knows, you might have two, three of these as I did for the last year in the background. So,
No,
yeah,
100%. Like, yeah, it's certainly another one of those things where it's like, it's just the next step, but I know there's going to be another progression, and I don't know, it just gets me excited looking into the
yeah,
future, especially with how far it's been, like how far I've come, and we've come in like what a month and a little bit. It's like, yeah, I'm just super excited, like, because
yeah, it's
I think
crazy
the
to think.
account, yeah, because it's just like I know the account, my skills, everything's just improving a lot in this side of things, and I'm just yeah, I'm super excited for the future.
Yeah, no, love it. And do you have any closing words, or what would you say for anyone who's like on the fence, skeptical, thinking about, what they should be do, what they should do?
I think it's one of those things where it's like it's identity thing. It's like if you know what you want and you know the person you need to become, then you probably just need to do it. And it's not gonna feel comfortable and it sucks. But at the end of the day, like sitting on the fence, you're not gonna get anywhere. It's like you can sit on the sidelines forever, but only actually start making progress once you actually jump in the game and start learning. And learning you need a coach with it, especially in the sales industry. It's like bro, it's so hard to just learn by yourself. Like you need someone like competent who can actually help you. So
Mm,
it's like if you're on the sidelines, shit, it's like just get in the game. It's like if you want to be the person you want to be, you got actually got to have that congruence between speech and action, if anything.
yeah, 100%. And sort of last note on that, I think there's a big difference for anyone who's worked in sales long enough. You'll see the difference between businesses that have been built by people who have done sales and those who don't. And that's exactly what you talked about, where sales isn't like learning the alphabet or running an ad where there's just once it's going good, leave it alone. There's that human capital dynamic where you have to understand really how all the individual people in these environments will react together and be that master coordinator of seeing the cause and effect relationships between what you say and how they respond to it, or the silent resentment that might build in your management style between being direct with somebody and motivating and all that goes into sort of working people in these instances. And I think that's really that's sort of that skill that takes a lifetime to master. The professionalism would be a part of it. But yeah, but it's something that really cannot be learned just through book memory or anything like that. You have to actually, I think, be there and more importantly, feel it yourself and then experience it. So yeah, but no, yeah, but it's been real, everybody. That's Chase. I'd say, yeah, one of
Cool.
one of the top students of identity closing, top student of LST, and absolutely crushing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah. Chase, it was an absolute pleasure having you on. For anybody who has questions or is curious about learning
Yeah.
more, go ahead and click either below or anywhere around this video, wherever it's hosted, and go ahead and schedule a call, and we can see how we can help you. But sweet. With that, until we speak next, all the best. Cheers.